All right, so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the Toy Story lab. Some of you had a few questions about how you approached it. A few things. Number one, the steps to simulation. This is also on my weekly review or overview for the week. You can see here you've got 7 things you're going to model out, and those things are also going to show up in the next page. If you need a little bit more explanation, this is also definitely explained in your chapter. We're going to kind of pay attention to a few things right here. Number one, the component to be repeated. This is the thing we're going to be doing. We're going to be opening boxes of cereal, right? You have 4 different prizes, and you want to collect each one. So I'm going to figure out how many boxes on average does it take me to collect all 4 prizes. So we need to do a few things. Number one, we need to really make sure that we know what we're talking about in terms of the component be repeated, because that's what I'm going to be doing over and over again. Number two, I want to really model out how are my numbers, my random numbers, going to match up and show me what my values are, right? So we're going to be using a random number table to kind of mimic this event. A random number can be found, you can search one on the internet. It's in the back of your textbook. It's really something that you can just Google. There's a ton of those kinds of things out there. So here's what we're going to do. I know that Buzz is 10%, Woody is 20%, Jesse is 40%, and Rex is 30%. I've got 10 numbers that I'm going to be dealing with, digits 0 through 9. What we want to do, essentially, to start off with, is we want to decide how our numbers are going to play out, right? So for example, right here, you see I need to divide up my digits. We have to pay attention to the original percentages and the fact that I have 10 digits, 0 through 9, right? So Buzz is going to get 10% of all my digits. Well, 10% of 10 is just 1. So you could give any number you wanted to Buzz. Woody is 20%, so I'm going to give Woody 2 of those 10 numbers. That's 20% of the numbers. Jesse's going to get obviously 4 numbers, and Rex would get 3. Now, it made sense. In class, we kind of started off at 0 and then 1 and 2, and I worked our way all the way up to 9 across this way. You can really decide how you want to do that yourself. Okay, number 3, I needed to do a few things here. Explanation of simulation. Really, if you take 1, 2, 3, and 4, if you kind of organize those as one piece, what I really needed you to do is kind of give me some instructions on how I'm going to actually run my trials in step 5. So I need you to do 3 things for me in this part. Number 1, I want you to tell me how I can deal with any numbers that are repeats, right? So if I'm looking at my random number table and I get 5 come up 2 or 3 times in a row, is that okay? Can I get numbers to repeat? In some examples, like in our homework, we've looked at some that repeats are not really okay, right? So deal with repeats. Tell me if it's okay or not. In some instances, number 2, I need to be able to determine if I need to skip over any numbers, if any numbers are left out. Now, we were able to kind of use every number, 0 all the way through 9. So nothing's left out in this example. So I don't really need to mention any skipped over numbers. But sometimes, like number 30 for homework, you had a card example where you only used 5 numbers. Every other number was going to be ignored when it showed up in my number table. And the last part, number 3, for this piece, I need you to tell me when my trial is over. Right? So I'm going to be selecting these boxes of cereal. I'm going to be opening them up, and I'm going to be writing down the prize that happens. Right? In this example, I'm going to stop once I've collected all of the prizes, or at least one of each. Right? I may have 10 different toys, but at least I've got one of each of these prizes, and that's when I'm going to stop my trials. The response variable. Well, it was the original question. How many boxes of cereal do I need to open up on average before I'm going to collect all of my prizes, right? And so you want to tell me exactly how you're going to do this. In my in part 5, I'm going to run through my random number table, and I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. I want to go ahead and I'm going to run through my number table, and I'm going to do this 10 times, meaning I'm going to collect all 4 toys 10 times and write down the number of boxes that it took for me to actually collect those 10 prizes. Okay, here analyze the results. It's just really part of the math that really 6 and 7 can kind of be grouped into a group by itself. All right, so you have 3 major components. You have 1 through 4. That's kind of my setup. How do I do this? My instructions. I've got section 5 or problem 5 here, which is really the actual running of my simulation. And then we also have the very last part, 6 and 7. This is writing out my conclusions. I'm going to compute the average here, right? It's just the math. So here literally is a space for you to do some of the math part. In number 7, you're going to write out a sentence, probably just one sentence, describing in context, talking about cereal boxes and how many I got to go out and buy on average to get all 4 toys, right? Not a really complicated expression. Let me show you what I mean by looking at a random number table. So here's an example of random number table that I have in printed off at times. You can Google it. You can go to the back of your textbook. I believe it's the 3rd page from the back. You'll see a random number table. It doesn't have to be any special number table. Any number table would work great. So here's an example. I'm just going to kind of show you what would happen if we were to kind of run through this. So if I'm just looking, let's say the very first row right here. 1, well, that would be Woody. 3, that is Jesse. 9 would be Rex. 6 would be Jesse again. 2 would be Woody again. 7 is Rex again. And then we have Buzz. I can stop right there. Right? So my first trial, so trial 1, it took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It took me 7 boxes. Now, I have the option, since we stopped right here, I have the option of beginning again and continuing on, or I could go down and pick another random point in my table and keep going. Now, be careful. A lot of people said, oh, I looked for 0 and I picked that one because I saw 0 is going to happen fast. That's automatically biasing your results. If I were you, I definitely wouldn't look at the trial that I'm going to be picking. Personally, I tend to start at one spot and just keep on going all the way. And if I get to the end, I'm going to come back and keep going until I finish the number of trials I need to complete. And that's really all you've got to do. Okay? You'll write this down in the Google or in the actual form, the quiz you're working on. You can kind of see the example I posted and you can kind of use that as a template. And you're just going to run 10 trials. And at the end, you're going to take all of your results and you're going to just average those together and tell me how many boxes on average do you think it's going to take to collect all 4 prizes.